Welcome to Entry Point Faith, where every week we find fresh meaning in the world so you can find faith your way. Our message this week is titled Helping Not Hurting and is presented by Betty Ellison.
A few months ago, my husband and I took a 10-day vacation to Alaska with some friends. If you've never been there, it's amazing. Wonderful flowers, gorgeous mountains, and so much wildlife. We met a lot of fun and quirky people, and we tasted incredible food. One of the many adventures that we had started with a 30-minute boat ride from Homer, Alaska to Ketchimek State Park, where we hiked 2.5 miles up and down a mountain. Then we got into kayaks and we rode around icebergs of all sizes so that we could see the Gruink Glacier up close. We then kayaked back to the trail and hiked back up and down the mountain and got into the boat and went back to Homer. It was a full 8-hour day trip. Now, my husband and I are not professional kayakers, but we have some experience and we even have our own kayaks. What we were in was a 2-person kayak. When Dave and I kayak, we use our own, which are individuals. When we bought them, I really wanted a double, or what they call a tandem. But when the salesperson said they kind of call those divorce boats, I thought that was a sales tactic since buying 2 was more expensive than buying 1. But I've come to understand there's some truth to it. It is probably important to tell you that there was about 3 inches of water in the bottom of our kayak, and that water was 34 degrees Fahrenheit. Being the prepared person that I am, I had rain pants on. My husband wore his regular sweatpants. This is a picture of us getting ready to launch. I had no idea what was to come at this point. Despite my facial expression, I was really excited about this adventure. About 2 minutes into the kayak portion, this was us. Me enjoying the beauty around me, blissfully ignorant that my husband was in a prone position. Dave, having played football from the time he was 5 years old through college, with more than a few injuries, had sciatica pain radiating from his back down his legs. After a week of hiking, riding in cars for hours at a time, and sleeping on beds of various firmness and quality, his back was not happy. He made it through the 2.5-mile hike to the kayaks without complaining, but now it was catching up with him. Eyes in the back of my head would have been very helpful at this point. This is us about 3 minutes into the adventure. He was telling me that it felt better for him to lay down, but I had no idea how much of the time he was in the prone position. I was rowing as hard as I could, but I was not able to row the kayak straight. I did learn that it is next to impossible to steer a kayak from the front. So I kept yelling at him to at least steer the darn thing. Later he told me that he was steering by trying to keep the sun on one side of his face since he wasn't able to turn his head because of the bulky life jacket. Several other kayakers who were on the trip asked if we wanted to be towed. Now, I will doubt myself all day long, but if you doubt me, I will prove you wrong. I adamantly said no and rowed even harder. About halfway into our trip, we stopped on an island for lunch, and I understood the reality of what was going on. Let's face it, in the picture, it looks like Dave is just enjoying the ride. At the time, no one but me and Dave knew the pain he was really in. It seems that there is sometimes a fine line between enabling and support, and to tell you the truth, I'm not sure I always know where that line is. I have spoken before and shared that alcoholism was part of my life growing up. I won't go into that again, but in the addiction world, there is a lot of talk about enabling. Outside of that world, we think of enabling as a positive word. Saving money for college will enable my children to further their education. By definition, the word enable means to give strength or ability to make firm and strong, to make able, to confer sufficient power upon, to furnish with means, opportunities, and the like, to render competent for, to empower, to endow. In the world of addiction, the word enable means to enable a person to continue their addiction. For example, by giving them money or even purchasing alcohol or drugs for them. The question that I asked as I rested my tired shoulders on a small island near the Gruink Glacier in Alaska was, what is the difference between enable and support? And am I able to determine when I'm enabling in a bad way or when support is truly helpful. Now, I realize with the kayak situation, it was very clear to me that Dave needed my help, and it wasn't about enabling bad behavior. I'm sure others saw that differently, but I'm fine with that. In an article in Psychology Today, Jade Wu talks about what enabling is, why it is unhelpful, and what to do about it. She shares that you can enable someone's bad behavior in many ways, but it all boils down to the things you do to keep them in the status quo. Usually, enabling happens accidentally. You were trying to help, but after months or years of trying, one day you look up and you realize that your college-age son is still being irresponsible with money, or your friend is still blacking out from drinking. Here are a few behaviors that Wu shared that could mean that you are enabling someone. Number 1, cleaning up after them. Now, this isn't literally cleaning up after their messes, but cleaning up includes shielding that person from the negative consequences of their own behavior. A parent calls their daughter's college professor to argue about her failing exam grade. A sibling pays his brother's rent whenever his funds fall short because he regularly puts all his money into gambling. Some of these helping behaviors might be okay if they happen infrequently. But if these rescues happen repeatedly, all you're doing is preventing your loved one from experiencing the consequences of their behaviors. They don't get the opportunity to grow from their mistakes and gain confidence in their ability to handle tough situations. Number 2, giving them non-specific help, like money, that doesn't support a well-defined goal. Our loved ones often come to us in moments of crisis. They're about to lose their job. They need to pay someone back. They've been caught cheating and need a couch to crash on. Again, if this is a frequent pattern, support can turn into enabling. In these moments, it can be hard not to feel compelled to do something. The root of their problem doesn't change. They simply gain a false sense of security that there's always someone to bail them out if they screw up again. There's no accountability. Number 3, not sticking to your word about boundaries and limits. Sticking to your boundaries isn't only for your own sanity. The person you're trying to help will ultimately feel more secure if they can count on you keeping your word, even if they initially fight back. You're also being a good role model for consistent behavior. Now, this one has been a struggle for me with my grandbaby Zane that you've seen me here occasionally. I will tell him that I won't go draw pictures on the driveway with chalk until he finishes his broccoli. If he doesn't finish his broccoli, I am usually the one disappointed, so I'm tempted to give in. Flip-flopping between shaming them and making excuses for them. We're all human, and when someone we care about keeps sabotaging themselves, it's easy to get frustrated. One of my kids was heading down a bad path a few years ago, and I would defend their behavior in front of my friends, but I would shame him when we were all alone. I now realize how confusing and unhelpful that must have been. So how do you productively help someone make a life change? Wu shares that before you start to help someone, it's important to acknowledge you can't control another person's behavior. After you've relinquished control, turn your attention to the person you're trying to help. Start, as always, with empathy. She has a few steps for us. Number 1, provide a non-judgmental space for them to share. You can't help someone if they're afraid or ashamed to be honest with you. Let go of judgments and radically accept this person. That doesn't mean you condone their unhealthy behaviors. It simply means you acknowledge their value as a person. Give them space to talk through their thoughts and their feelings. Number 2, hold them accountable without shaming or guilt tripping. When the person is ready to change, to get off drugs, to leave a toxic relationship, or to make a monthly budget, you can be ready to keep them accountable if they ask for help. But, and this is where I've made a lot of mistakes in the past, you shouldn't decide for them how you will hold them accountable. I have been guilty of creating budgeting spreadsheets without being asked, reaching out to university professors, and even emailing a family member's therapist because I wanted them to understand my side. Trust me, this will only set you up as opponents. Instead, you need to collaborate on a plan, encourage them to set goals, and ask what they need from you to hold them accountable. Number 3, celebrate successes with them. If you help a loved one set realistic incremental milestones right from the start, there will hopefully be many opportunities to celebrate. It's your job to remind them how hard change is and how proud they should be of every win. Number 4, provide reasonable logistical support and attention. Start out by listing unhelpful enabling behaviors, such as repeatedly lending money without accountability, with the caveat that sometimes a concrete piece of support could be appropriate. In fact, sometimes it could be even crucial. The difference between this helpful behavior and enabling behaviors comes down to, is the person willing to put in the work to change their unhealthy behaviors? Is there a well-defined purpose for the loan or other form of help? Is there a reasonable plan, or are they willing to make one for what they will do after they use your support to get past this immediate crisis? Asking these questions and encouraging thoughtfulness around them is not being stingy with your support. It's a very concrete way for you to help without judgment. Unconditional love does not mean unconditional acceptance of bad behavior. It is confusing. We often think unconditional love means, I will love you no matter what. Those words imply that you will accept behaviors that are not healthy. Unconditional love means I love you, but I also love myself, and I need to make decisions that will create a positive, safe, and healthy relationship. I hope you can see by what I've shared that I am trying to relinquish control more, which will allow me to be truly helpful. Let go and let God is an important phrase that is used in AA. Because I want to be transparent with you and show you that I am still a work in progress, here is a video of Dave and I in Alaska trying to land the kayak on the island for lunch. Now, what you are watching is our second attempt. The first time, we were 2 feet away from shore. That's right at the beginning of the video. My controlling self didn't want to get my boots wet, so I wanted to try again. Spoiler alert, the second time we landed 5 feet away from shore. Take a look.
All right, you guys gonna get out?
Well, I'm gonna try to straighten.
You gonna video this, Thomas? I'm trying.
Do it again. Well, I want to like get in so I don't. Okay, turn around. Turn around. We're almost there. David. No.
Keep turning, Dave. You spin fast enough, Betty's gonna fly right out.
Proverbs 3, verse 27 tells us, do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is in your power to do so. For several years, I have been asking, begging, and even bribing my son to go back to college after a failed first attempt. I don't need to tell you that I was unsuccessful. But now, my son and his wife have decided on their own to go back to school. It is in my power to help them by sharing our home with them and provide them with financial support and help with Zane. Over the past few weeks, as I have been dedicating time to thinking about enabling versus supporting, I have had to look at the situation, and I think this time I may be getting it right. But I haven't always done so. I like to think that over time I will provide a non-judgmental space for them, find positive ways to hold them accountable, celebrate successes with them, and provide reasonable support and attention. Apparently you can teach an old dog new tricks, with me being the old dog. One thing I can count on for certain: love is the answer no matter what.
Thank you so much for joining us. As you know, Entry Point Faith relies on your financial contributions to keep everything going. If you would like to donate, please head on over to the website at entrypointchurch.org and you can click on the donate button. We meet every week at Conner Prairie in Fishers, Indiana at 10:30 a.m. Plan to arrive a little bit early so that you can become a part of the community. Please join us next week when our message will be titled Metamorphosis.